Hey everyone, welcome to Shiloh Ranch Church. At Shiloh Ranch, we have a lot of activities constantly going on. We have what's called the 1017 Project, which supplies food to families in need. We have the Firewood Project in the winter, which supplies firewood to families in need. We have amazing worship and scripture-based sermons every single Sunday, and we have an awesome team that you will get to meet along the way. But without further ado, let's head into the service.
Good morning, Shiloh Ranch Church Online.
I dread the Sunday after Easter every year because they say that like Easter is the carnivals in town, and the next week everybody's busy and going and doing, and it's like you show up and the parking lot's just the trash blowing across the parking lot. So welcome to everyone, every pastor's.
Welcome to the trash parking lot.
Welcome to every pastor's least favorite week of the year.
It's one of my favorite weeks because we get to watch Steve Stone.
Yes.
And you.
It's a Sermon 2.0.
Sermon 2.0.
It's a discussion versus just a monologue.
Right. So that's wonderful.
Yep.
We've got a prayer team that you can click the request prayer button at any time, and they will request or pray with you.
I hope people do that. I hope people pick up. Like it feels like we've made a push just in the last few weeks at Shiloh to really go like full steam into the next season.
Right.
And it feels like people are starting to connect the dots that like there are people sitting behind these screens. Mm-hmm. There are people that are intentionally taking time on Sundays that want to make themselves available to people to pray, things like that. So I hope people will take advantage of that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we want to. We're trying to find the balance. We're trying to find the thing that makes church, makes a community, and prayer is definitely a big part of that. So.
Yeah, well, and you just said it. I mean, we're in a season of saying both and. We believe that what we're doing online is equally as important to what we're doing in person because there's people involved in both sides. So.
Definitely. Yeah. So we're going into worship now, and then we'll be back here to talk about the sermon before we go into that. So we will see you all then.
In the dead of night, and you tell
the word perfect for granted. Like we talk about, oh, this weather is perfect. This burrito that I'm eating is so perfect. When we're talking about God and saying you are perfect in all of your ways, we're talking about God's love and his peace and his patience and his loyalty to us and his forgiveness. And we think of someone that maybe we look up to and we think, I want to be them, they're perfect. And we know that humans aren't perfect. And it's just crazy to imagine that God's love and forgiveness and peace, the things that we crave, is perfect. So I just want to sing that again. You are perfect in all of your ways. And think about the word perfect and how we just throw it around casually. But we're talking about our Father who loves us and forgives us. Let's sing that. You are perfect. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Oh, you are. You are perfect in all of your ways. Well, you are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am.
We are back, and we're about to go into the sermon.
Yes, we are. I don't have, Steve Stone needs no introduction. He is still one of the most talked about sermons that we've had at Shiloh in the history of Shiloh. And so I'm excited to have him back. We sat right here where we're sitting I guess it's been about a month ago when we recorded it.
Yeah.
Man, that guy's he's got such a heart for God. I just don't know how somebody could see that guy and not feel like that they'd seen a part of Jesus's personality.
Oh, 100%.
And so, I mean, just selfishly, every time I get to sit down and visit with him, even if we never recorded it, even if nobody else saw it, I always get something out of it.
Right.
Proof of that is like he's the one. He's on a short list of people that I might call and have a 1 hour phone call with.
Right.
He's a special guy, and I love his viewpoint or his angle of who he believes Jesus to be.
100%. No, it was really cool. I loved being a part of it. Take notes because we're going to start doing live podcast type stuff again.
We're announcing that. It's the return of the live podcast, where it's back in podcast season again.
Right. So we'll be sitting right here. There'll be a screen there or an iPad or something showing your comments. So take notes of your questions during the sermon.
Do you think people will? Do you think people actually are hearing this, or do you think they've just gotten so used to hearing it? They're like, yeah, this is the part where they say take notes. Or do you think they're actually going to write down questions of like, wait, what did that mean? What did you mean when you said?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I hope so. And I hope that people, also a note is it doesn't have to technically be about the sermon. I mean, just a question.
You think there'd have to be questions right now. We're doing something I've never really seen or I've never really been a part of. I've got questions. Mm-hmm. I've got questions like, how's this going to work? What are we doing? What about this? What about that? So I hope people will include those too.
Right. Yeah. So write them down because when we do a live, we'll announce it beforehand. So you'll get some warning and then you can call up the questions and copy and paste it into the comments. Yep. So take notes and then,
are we announcing for sure a time are we doing it Sunday night at 8 p.m.?
I don't know exactly.
I'm just kidding. I don't know when we're doing it. We'll announce that. We'll put out. I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. So we'll let you guys know what we're doing, but take notes. We're going right into worship after the sermon, and then we'll be back here to sign you guys off. Yep. So we'll see you soon.
This is our second Sermon 2.0. We got Steve Stone. Steve was in Arizona because a friend of his is buying 130 horses He just happened to be in town for this week. Him and JD that we saw last week are buds. Actually, JD and his son went with Steve to Belize for some of the stuff he's working on. If you don't know Steve, here's a quick background. He was a tremendously gifted horseshoer. Started playing music with a little local guy, and that guy was playing on the street corners there in Fort Worth, and that took off. That guy was Casey Donahue, so he played in the Casey Donahue band up until about a year and a half ago, or maybe 2 years ago. Felt like God was calling him to something more specific that was ministry related, but didn't tell him what. Since then, Steve has become such a force in my life. We've been buds anyway, but God's done some really unique things in his life that have really challenged me at a personal level. Just personally, when I'm going through stuff, there's a lot of people I don't feel like I can just call. I don't have a long list of people that I just randomly call and spew my garbagey questions out on. Steve is a huge blessing in my own personal life, separate from what I do for work, separate from what I am in my family. He is a tremendous blessing in my life, and I'm so grateful that you guys get to hear from him also. So we're going to go into that now.
It's like close. I'm going to end up going whack. Can I talk with my
Try to make it formal and church it up.
Do you know me at all? Hello, brother Steve. Welcome to my podcast.
Welcome to, yeah, like.
Hi, welcome to my YouTube page.
There's got to be more.
You know what? My face.
Okay. Welcome back. Where's Steve? Hey, I'm going to tell you, since we did this one in Texas last January, it's hard to believe it's been like a year and a quarter ago. I can't tell you how many people I run into that reference something that you've said that stuck with them.
Wow.
Like it's been, for people listening, you represent some sort of weird safety blanket. Was it Linus on
That or they're just shallow enough that I'm the only thing.
They're like, man, that's Steve. He just, he's, but let me read it real quick because this has kind of been the theme of where we were last week too. It's in Luke chapter 11, verse 14. It says, Jesus was driving out a demon that was mute. When the demon left, the man who had been mute spoke, which means that when this person was under the influence of a demonic spirit that wanted to destroy his life, it manifests in silencing him. Yeah. I know there's times like the Holy Spirit guides you to be like, okay, calm down, don't say that. Like a patience sort of a thing. This is not that. Not everyone who's mute is suffering from an evil spirit. Also not what I'm saying. That story specifically, though, his software was flawed. It was broken, and he was living in silence. I will say this before we get started. You represent the exact opposite of that in my life. Like there are times where I feel like when I get to like a breaking point, I always know that I can call you, and there's nothing that I'm going to be able to say. There's no language that I can use. There's no word that's off limit that I can't just completely blow up, to borrow JD's point, have this sort of like explosion moment. Mm-hmm. I never worry that in those moments you're going to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does that fall? Do you think that's something that follows all of your relationships? Does that seem like you represent that identity in everyone's life?
I would hope so. I don't know, but I hope so. I would love to know that. I would love to think that. But, going back to the silent thing, this just came to me, and I know JD and I have talked about it on our, we talk weekly, on a Zoom meeting, but I feel like the original sin in the garden, okay, wasn't necessarily Eve eating the fruit. It was Adam's passivity. His silence. He was mute. Wow. So I think this is just me. So you can interpret it however you like. But whenever after the fall and God came looking for Adam. Remember, he said, Adam, where art thou? Well, I don't think God had any trouble finding him.
Right.
But I almost think he's saying, well,
what are you hiding from?
Yeah, where were you?
Yeah.
Like, what are you, like? So
it's all,
I don't know that mute and that silence. And how many times that in your life that something happens or whatever, and you know you should speak up, and you don't.
You feel choked.
Don't you die a little bit? Like every time that happens, you're, oh man, I should have said something.
Well, so for me, and I've talked about this a little bit on the last one, but I feel choked. There are times where it's like I can't make myself make a sound because something that's going on inside is just so conflicted. It's like the sound or the words or my cry for help reaches a roof and it can't escape. Yeah. So when it says that there's a demonic spirit, if someone's an unbeliever, if somebody's like, I don't really know if I don't know where I'm at on that, think of it as a misalignment. If that's all that you can get to, it was like, because of how misaligned I am in my life, according to who I believe myself to be, I can't speak honestly. I can't speak truthfully. And if I can't speak truthfully, I won't speak at all. And does that make sense?
Yeah.
I feel like there are times where I can't pray, where I feel like my frustrations are so deep rooted and my not moral issues. Cause I used to think that like God was mad when I wasn't good, right? God was mad at me when I wasn't a good boy. Mm. It's not that. It's when I feel so lost.
Yeah.
It's silence. It's what I would imagine someone goes through when they get ready to like stand up on stage and sing for the first time. And it's time, and like the drums happen and like, here's your cue. And you're just like,
yeah.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's why this was important to me, is because I feel like there's a lot of people right now that are just, they don't feel like they can talk about their problems. They don't feel like they can talk about their issues, maybe in their marriage. They don't feel like they have a spouse that they could go and fully be honest with, which, hey, like people know their own situations.
Sure.
What do you do? Where do you start for somebody that's just locked in silence of like that?
Gosh.
Where do you begin?
You know, I don't even know. I mean, like, I almost feel like, because or as men, we get that way, and I get that way too, where I feel like, I'm going to go pray, and then I just feel like I don't even know what to say. And so sometimes, honestly, I'll get on my place, and I'll just either ride a horse or ride my side-by-side back in the woods, and I will literally just sit there in silence. And I don't know that you could define that as praying, but I will literally just sit there just.
But I think there's a difference.
You know,
I think there's a difference between being muted and being silent. Because there are times where I feel like I love the silence. The silence is like, God, I just need your presence near me, and I can't ruin it with my own voice. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a good place to start, is like when you're muted.
Yeah, I don't know. But I know what you're saying too. Like, I see what you're saying. Like, I can think it. And I was 21 years old and I got saved and knew nothing about church or Bible or anything. So I didn't have a frame of reference as a kid. But I can, now that we're talking about the church model, and I've been talking about that. I know what you mean, like going into a church and hearing, I know I always refer to it as this, but 3 songs in a sermon. But that's a lot of what it is, man. And so I can remember sitting in there going, man, I see no value in this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get this. And therefore, you do exactly what you said. You just stay quiet. Yeah. And go, well, I guess,
I'm not going to cause problems, but I don't feel like I'm going to fully live.
If this is being fully alive, no thanks.
We were at a church service. I was a kid one time, and we were at a church service in Idaho. I don't remember where. My dad was a missionary, and there's not a church model that I haven't seen. And the worship leader was like, everyone dance. Every direction, people are dancing. And I remember I was 10 years old, and I was like,
what's going on here?
I'm not doing that. I will not. I don't mind you guys doing whatever you're doing, but you're not going to, I'm not going to play along to this dance. Yeah. And whether it's dancing or whether it's behavior, I think that's the muting. That's the muting of like, I can't live honestly in my spiritual walk if I feel like that it only looks a certain way. If it can only be truthful in a certain way.
I agree. We have to know who we are, our identity. Everything starts with that. Who God made you and tells you who you are. That's your identity. And until you get that, how do you know? It's hard. You don't operate within your own identity. You're just operating some false identity. It doesn't feel right.
You're mimicking.
It doesn't. It's not supposed to feel right.
Since the last time that we spoke, catch people up, because you're getting to experience life with people who are coming out of
foster care.
Yeah. I just catch people up if you don't mind.
Okay. I'll tell you how I came to that. Okay. First of all, most of your church, because I've spoke to you before, know what we do in Belize, in Central America, where we have safe houses and we work with girls that have been trafficked and whatnot. Okay, so that led me to, man, we really need to do something at home. We need to do something in America with the trafficking. Trafficking's horrible, especially now since our borders are a complete wreck.
Right.
But anyway, what the road that led down was me looking into it and praying through it and going, God, I just want some, I don't know if a model is the right word, but some direction. Just give me something to go towards here in this trafficking. So I start looking into it. Well, most of the people trafficked in America are kids that age out of foster care. So that led me down this road. So I started looking into that. I'm like,
When you say age out of foster care, they were in the foster care system.
and
They
at
turned
18 or not, anywhere between 18 and 21, depends on them graduating.
they
or
become a
not.
legal liability because they're in a home
So
with
that's correct. So the
minors.
state emancipates them. Okay,
What a terrible use of that word. Here, you're free.
you're free. You're
From
not,
us.
Yeah, and check this out. So God just showed me, and I know Jody Webb's been on here, and she and I are good friends, and we were talking through it at the same time. And I was like, you know what? I think God's just showing me that, listen, if we don't approach this or address, rather, this foster care problem, these kids coming out of foster care, and if we don't start pouring into young men and teaching them to love Jesus and honor women, then we're going to be rescuing girls forever. Because it's not girls doing it.
Right. Okay.
So-
there's a number. You said a number one time. The number of children who are in the foster system is exactly the same number.
Is the congregations in America. Almost exactly. And that fluctuates daily because kids are aging in and out. But it led me down that road to look at that. I started
remember,
studying
well,
this
that's what I was
going,
gonna say, is like,
wait a
that
second.
was your inspiration of like, wait a minute. There is
Yeah.
5 churches, 5 foster kids. There's 435,000 churches. There's 435 people in
Yeah,
the foster
and this
system.
is what it made me look into. I said, wait a second. So there's 380 something, it's right at 400,000 kids in foster care on a daily basis. And I said, well, okay, I wonder how many kids are in, or how many congregations there are. So I looked that up. Not denominations, I could care less about that, and it was almost the same number. And so I'm just like, God, what are you trying to show me here? And then if you look at James 1:27, you know, I've talked about it, that, you know, that undefiled religion is literally, you know, looking after the widows and orphans. Now we call them foster kids because that sounds better, but an orphan's an orphan.
Sure.
And so it was like God was showing me, look, you've turned my orphans over to the government.
Here, you take care of
And
them.
you wonder why this is a mess. This is a church problem to me, not a, like JD said, worship center. No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the body of Christ.
Yeah.
If the body of Christ was doing
Right.
James 1:27, well, we'd have no need for a foster care system.
Right. Right. And
Because
think
we
about
would
the
take
culture.
care-
Think about the culture that you would see developing in our
Oh.
country if a mosque saved me off the street and loved me and cared for me, even if I grew up to have a different faith, I would never be able to view them as anything other than my family because of what they did in my life.
Yeah, no. That's
Now take
right.
that at its worst and turn that around and go, hey, what would happen if that was a responsibility that we as a church, instead of thinking of it strictly as 3 songs in a sermon, which, to be clear, I'm not against. I say that as a pastor of a church. Like, I'm a pastor of a
I
church.
hear you. I'm
But
not
it can't
against
be
it.
limited that
I know.
if that's all that
That's
this
not
is.
all of it, though.
Well, that's what drives me so freaking nuts is when people are like, meh, I'm not being ugly. Please, here's me being, maybe I should be muted a little bit. But when people are so passionate about whether it's live or whether it's digital, I get that we have preferences. The vision of what we're supposed to accomplish should be so much beyond the demonstration on an hour on Sunday mornings that we should go, okay, that's a part of what we're doing, but we're also rescuing people. We're loving people. We're feeding
it,
people.
man.
We're providing firewood. We are
Yeah.
loving each other. We're giving a voice to people who have been muted. We're seeing freedom, like how it's delivered, the
Yeah.
mechanism of how it's delivered on Sunday. If we're doing a good job, shouldn't be the pulse of that worship center.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that as being guilty because there's times where my entire focus is what we do on Sunday mornings. I know that I've been there.
Yeah,
Sorry.
maybe that should just be a little pep rally for what we're doing.
Pep rally is the right word. So
what we're doing in the world.
They're at your house in Blum.
Mm-hmm.
You told me this was going to happen. You told me you were thinking about this and you hadn't figured out how you were going to do it yet. Fast forward.
Well, here's the thing too, and this leading up to that. So I see this foster care problem. I'm like, man, this is a very big deal. And so I go through this process of being licensed and all this through this homeless shelter or through this youth shelter in Fort Worth, just to volunteer with the kids. So I go up there and he says, this is a youth emergency shelter. This shelter here, we have 20 beds. And we keep kids here from 11 to 17. The younger ones there's another shelter there, but we keep kids from 11 to 17. And he's telling me this, and he's showing me around. I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. I said, what do you do when they turn 18? And I could tell he didn't really want to, he just kind of cringed. I said, no, really, like, if you only keep them until they're 17, what do you do when they're 18? He said, well, we take them to the homeless shelter and drop them off. And I said,
imagine the dread. If you're 17, imagine the dread. First of all, that you're living in foster care. Who knows, good or bad. But you've got a birthday coming and you see it coming and you're like, what happens? What happens? Because now the chance of getting adopted at 17.
No, let me tell you what it is. It's confirmation that nobody wants you. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's horrible. Here, listen, when he was telling me that, I just thought, I mean, right here in the home of the free and the land of the brave.
And the Bible Belt.
That's our plan with kids. And surely we can't expect them to do good.
Right.
Because I got to tell you, if you drop my kids off at 18 on the streets with nothing, I mean, and again, I'm not knocking this particular youth shelter that has. Listen, they can't keep 18-year-old kids in there with 11-year-olds.
No, you understand how he found it. I mean,
they don't. They hate it. They don't want to do it either. But there's just nowhere to go with it. And the problem is, and you and I have talked about it, in the foster care system, when a kid grows up, okay, there's a particular kid living on my ranch right now. It's been in 24 homes. Okay, so when a kid grows up, even if you're doing right by him and you're providing for him, you are creating someone that is a consumer, that is not a contributor. So now you confirm his insecurities that nobody wants him in a family and turn him out on the streets at 18, and he's still a consumer.
Yeah.
How do you think that's going to turn out? That's why that's why 80% of inmates have been in the foster care system.
Say that number again.
80%. Look it up. That's not my opinion. Look it up.
80% of the inmates in the prison system.
In the prison system say they've, at one time or another, have been in the foster care system. And I'm not knocking the people that are trying to do the foster care system, whether that's government or whoever. I'm saying it should have never been given to the government. Number one, the government is not good at raising kids.
Right.
And they should, and it's not their job anyway.
Right.
The body of Christ should have stepped in from day one and done something. For instance, one thing you can go, okay, so you notice in Christian circles, they're real big on fighting against abortion and getting abortion outlawed. Okay, I'm cool with that. But let's just say that you get that done. Let's just say, and I'm not for abortion, so don't misunderstand me.
I'm
okay, but let's just say we get abortion outlawed and nobody can get abortions. Okay, now you've got 3,000 a day more kids in the system that you've already bailed on the ones that are here.
Yeah, it's already saturated.
So what's your plan? Just to outlaw that? You better have a plan, because we, as the body of Christ, and I'm part of it. Yeah. I'm part of his body. So I'll own it, but I'll also say that I'm going to step up and do something about it. But listen, we have bailed on his kids.
Yeah.
Just because these kids are born and their families have, whatever happened, whether they bailed on them or, okay, well, we for us to expect the government to raise them is ludicrous.
Okay, real quick, I gotta insert this, because I think sometimes people think of Jesus, church. That's it. What you're talking about has nothing to do with an hour of your time on a Sunday morning. No. What you're talking about is a lifestyle that consumes you daily.
Yes. It is, to me, church, being his bride, being the body of Christ, means demonstrating the heart of the Father.
Yeah.
The same thing he did. He said, I came here. Remember, Jesus said, I came here to show you. I only do what I see my Father do.
Well, and
he
I wonder,
came here to show us the Father.
I wonder if every church, and this is obviously, I know this isn't going to happen. Before I even say it, I know it's not going to happen. And I'm not saying it as an expectation of what people should do. I'm saying imagine if the congregations across the nation were to say, like, we want to collectively create a safe space so that if you don't have anywhere else to go, you can learn how to farm, you can learn how to weld, you can learn how to be an electrician or a plumber. We're going to church on Sunday mornings. Here's why. Because that is the pep rally for the culture.
For the life we
kingdom
live. Yeah.
software. The kingdom software that we operate by, we want to come back in and love each other. And like if somebody loves something, they'll congregate around it. That's just the reality. It's not some sort of an obligation. If there was some mutual participation on something like that, and you go, well, that's unrealistic. But it's not unrealistic for... Just what are you building now? Like, tell me, because I know that we didn't talk about this last time we talked. Tell me what you're doing on your place.
So we have cabins on my place. We take in young men that are aging out of foster care and don't have anywhere to go. But we're not just housing them. I mean, because that's, again, they've only been taught to be consumers. So when they come there, they get their own cabin. But we work through. Here's what I want to do with a young man, with anybody, but especially one of these, is let's figure out what their dreams are. Let's figure out who God says you are.
Right.
Let's find your identity. I don't want to try to make you into
Right.
something I want you to be.
Well,
I want you to figure out how to
identity
dream.
is never based in consumption. Identity is always, where do I fit in contribution? Where am I needed? Where am I valuable? Where do I step in? Where do I step out? Identity is never related to consumption. It is always tied to an area of contribution.
Yeah.
So if you're just a consumer, what good is an identity?
That's what I mean. Yeah. And man, I've seen it really play out with the young men that live on my place, how, and I know you and I have talked about it here in the last few hours, but for instance, so I have a kid living there on the ranch, and they have things they have to do. They have to feed horses. They have chores they have to do. Well, even though I would notice a kid he was doing them, probably bored with it, but he was doing them. Well, then another kid comes there to live. This first kid comes alive. Hey, I'm going to show you how to feed these horses.
Right.
And this is what we do around here.
This is how we do it.
This is how we do it around here.
This is the culture of what we do here.
And I just sit back and watch that, okay? At the same time, I get to see my own kids. I have a daughter and son-in-law that live on the ranch as well. Well, he has a leather shop, my son-in-law. Well, I look out there, and there's one or two of those kids. One in particular, he's out there, and he's showing him how to tool a leather belt.
And where is he from?
Which one?
The one that's about to tool the belt you're going to tell the story on.
This one is he's from Cleveland. He's from Texas. There's another one there's one that you might have thought I was talking about that's from inner city Detroit.
Yeah.
He's from Detroit. He lives there on the ranch. So all this culturally is.
It's all over the place.
Oh my God. Well, and this is foreign to him.
Yeah.
But I'm watching this kid tool this belt going, that's really cool that he's learning to do this. But then I look at my son-in-law and go, but look.
Yeah.
Listen, we always find purpose. Purpose is always found in serving other people.
Right.
Like you're talking about identity.
Right.
Listen, whatever your purpose is, I promise you, it's going to include. It's going to have serving other people some way.
Real quick, I got a point I want to make, but first, the belt you showed me the picture of, he didn't build himself the belt. When he gets in there, this kid starts learning to tool a belt. Who's he build it for?
He builds it for my daughter's brand new baby. Because he wanted to give it. He wanted to make somebody something.
Okay, I think this is an important distinction. I think this is an important detail.
Yeah.
Because if you tell people like, I want to help people, so broad. Like even the villains say, I want to help people. I mean, it's such a broad thing. And yet, we find value in the way that we contribute. We measure, I heard this concept from a social evolutionist that declares himself an atheist. So he's not taking this principle from the Bible. He is taking this principle from what he's observed. He's traveled. He goes to war zones. He's been around people that are completely different in culture. But he said the person who finds a meaningful way to contribute knows he's safe. Because if he has a meaningful way to contribute, he's protected because people appreciate what he brings to the table. Yeah. So helping people isn't always selfless in a sense. And I mean, it can be, but helping people is mutual. And I think if I were to guess, you're experiencing this where you realize, hey, by helping people, I'm including myself in a very loving, supportive, cultural setting that wouldn't have been experienced if every man for himself.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm the guy that's a really good hunter and I go, and every time I go hunt, I bring back food for the village.
Yeah.
Guess who they're going to protect?
Yeah, they're not going to kill you.
No, I'm protected based on what I'm able to contribute.
Yeah.
So aging out, I mean, the goal, if this goes exactly according to plan, what does this look like at your place? I mean, what?
That's a hard one. Because first of all, every case or every person is so different. So I've had other people, you included, say, well, how long are they going to stay there? What's the plan? Listen, there's no program. The program is not going to love them like Jesus.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? Do they stay there 6 months or a year? I don't know, man.
Right.
What? I mean, how long is Jet going to live in your house? How long are you going to take?
5 more years.
How,
No, I'm just kidding.
how long are you going to take care of him, and how long are you going to? How long? I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm truly taking young men in and making them a part of my family, which we are, then listen. Too many things try to be functional, and instead of relational.
Logical. Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't you just demonstrate the heart of the Father and love people that everyone else is bailed on or whatever? There's not a program. And, you know, I've had people ask me if I'm going to get government funding from our program. Well, it's no program.
Right. There
so
isn't a program.
The government, no. I just do not have the government involved in anything I do. But there's no reason to have a program. And I know people in systems like the foster care system and different systems that are like, well, you got to have
Curriculum.
You have to have curriculum. You have to have this in order to really help people. I'm like, no, you don't.
Right.
Because that's what I don't want a program. I want them to feel like they're a part of a family, not a program.
So you're saying, if I could put words in your mouth, it's not about a curriculum, it's about a culture. And the quicker that culture seeps into them, kingdom software, the quicker kingdom software, the less dependent they're going to be, the more capable they're going to be of being contributors to society. They don't need you the way that they did need you, but they love you the same.
That's
you know,
right.
Eventually they're able to stand on their own 2 feet.
That's it.
This is one of the things, like right now, one of the big things in the entertainment industry is Yellowstone. Like it's just taken over and everybody wants to be a cowboy, and it's just whatever your thoughts are on that show. One of the things they do well is like kids come in that are misfits, they find a place, they become a meaningful contributor. And I think there's something that appeals to all of us. I mean, if you were to put it out there of like, hey, you come to my ranch, I'll teach you how to be a farmer or a rancher, and I'll teach you how to contribute. The world is so parched for that. Yeah. It's like, where do you even start? It feels too big. It feels like the need is too big. So most people don't start, myself included. Yeah. I'm sitting here like weighing, like, am I doing enough? Am I contributing enough? Yeah. Where do people start?
Yeah, it's a good question. That's what I started doing. I just started, I think my pursuit of Jesus is the foundation of the whole thing. Listen, if you're not pursuing God, man, how are you going to find out who you are?
Right.
Once you find out who you are, then you go, I know who I am. You know who you are. We've talked about this identity thing. Okay, it makes sense now that I can naturally act out my true identity because I know who I am.
Right.
But where you start is a good question, because when I've spoken at a few different places like churches and told them what we do, and I'm just telling you, the men will line up. Where do I sign up? Mm-hmm. How do I help? And I got to tell you, man, I'm literally sitting there going, man, that's a good question.
Right.
And it's caused me to think, I've got to be able to answer that and say, and I don't know that I can yet, but do you see what I mean? Like, here's the thing about the church model. No, nothing against the whole 3 songs in a sermon, but listen, is there a lot of value in that? Does that add value to my life? It can.
Right.
Maybe a little, but like it's not life changing.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're speaking, it's not life changing.
Doesn't
I'm
hurt my
just messing.
feelings. Does not hurt my feelings. Well, here's the thing. I'm more aware of that than anybody because I feel a responsibility.
And that's why I said that. But here's the thing, though. If what I've noticed helping people and watching guys and watching them right in their elements work around our place, and when I go speak and have guys come up to me and want to go, here's what I noticed: you do not have to. You don't have to just try to recruit people to love and help other
when
people.
it's real.
You don't.
Yeah.
Because everyone naturally wants to. Now, the same guys, you go, hey, man, you want to come to my church Sunday? They're going to
I
go.
would rather lose a finger in a
No
logging
thanks,
accident.
but if we're going to go feed some people,
Right.
or if we're going to go, I'm in. Kind of like your church, with the firewood.
If we didn't have the cattle project or the firewood project or something to do, people wander off. I'm not saying they're against me. I think if I'm not careful, we don't have enough for
It's
people
because
to do.
we don't find our purpose until we're serving other people. And when we sit there in a service and watch the music play and listen to preaching, who are we serving?
Right.
It just, we don't find a lot of purpose in that.
So
but when there's something
when
going
I was
on.
when I was in the oil field, I wasn't there for very long, but we would have safety meetings at 5:15 every, whatever it was, Tuesday morning or whatever. You could not get men excited about the safety meeting. They didn't care, but it was required. That's part of it. How much time we got, Jacob?
You got 30 right now.
Okay, I'll wrap it up with this. You could not get people excited about a safety meeting. They would be like, once they got out in the field, you had the information. It was necessary. Don't do this. One of the things I learned, as crazy as it sounds, as basic as it sounds, when you hook up a bumper pole, the reason you cross the chains is it creates a cradle. So if it comes off the ball, the reason you cross them is it cradles in the chain until you can get stopped. I didn't even use safety chains. I was like, they're useless. I don't want to be tied to it if it comes off.
Me too. I didn't know that.
But I learned that. I'm like, no kidding. Well, then I go out into the field and now I apply that. I still to this day, that was however many years ago. I'm like, okay, the meeting was a necessary part of the demonstration that would take place later. Make sense?
Yeah,
I think
good.
the church, if we're not careful, the Sunday mornings are important. Even if they're not enjoyable, they're an important equipping function so long as you're willing to go into the field. As long as the kingdom software that we download on Sunday morning has an outlet Monday through Saturday, because I know that God's not going to call everybody to live in a church. I know that he's not. But he is going to cause us to run into people and bump into them. And we need to understand what it means to use our voice. What does it mean to resist being muted? Mm-hmm. Okay, I learned that on Sunday when I listen to a podcast or like whatever. I learn it, but when do I apply it? And I think that to me is where my heart beats at, is an effective worship center, to borrow JD's term. An effective worship center includes a safety meeting. It has to. Because if you just willy-nilly send people out and you don't equip people with
absolutely.
reasonable information, it's not the part that they enjoy, but it's a necessary part of the rest of it.
Yeah. And if you can help them find, at that Sunday meeting like you're talking, if you can inspire them and help them find their true identity, who God made them, then they can operate in their true identity here in the world.
You know what I think? I think if the people who were in charge of the shop where we met and did the safety meetings, if you had food there, I'd be like, oh, this isn't bad. Or if like you show up and they got like coffee and rock stars and stuff like that, they're saying like, we get that it's not naturally enjoyable. I get it. Here's what we've done to try. So what you do is you put that in the hands of somebody that is care oriented.
A
shepherd who goes, hey, what was that thing we were supposed to do? And they've got a reference point back that every single day you can reference back and go, remember that meeting that we were talking about? I keep running into this problem. I keep causing damage. My trailer fell off. What was I supposed to do with it? You put it in the hands of people that are gifted at that element so that when you go back out into the field, you know you've got a support team. Remember the movie? It's a cartoon, but did you ever see the movie The Incredibles about the family that... It'd be cooler if you said yes, because there's going to be half the people.
My bad.
No clue. There was this lady, and her job was that she like built the suits or fixed stuff when it broke, or that she was, the word is shepherd. She was shepherding them so that when they went out and did their superhero stuff, they were equipped. It's the same thing. Batman. You look at Batman, and he had Alfred, right? It's that yin and yang. It's the in and out. We mentioned a minute ago when God calls Peter, he's casting the nets.
Yeah.
You know You know that when a net broke, he was just like, I'll just use it broken. When he calls John, John is repairing the nets, and you know that it would drive John nuts when Peter would use broken nets, because he's like, if you just fix that, you catch more fish. But the mutual responsibility of two is to come together in a kingdom format that says, I'll be a net repairman, you be the net caster. And there's that relationship. But neither should be muted. Neither should feel condemned for their calling or for their spot of contribution.
And they're doing.
They're doing.
They're doing.
Yep. Feels like a natural
Clip.
spot, yeah. Okay, here's what I want you to be looking for. When this series wraps up with JD and Steve, we sat down, we turned the cameras off, we just turned the microphones on. We had an hour and a half discussion, strictly audio, that's going to be loaded to the podcast app. It was awesome. It was way more unfiltered. We got to the heart of some things that we just don't have time to in a sermon format. And so I've loved this series. I love the Sermon 2.0s, but I'm also excited for you to get to hear the podcast that we're going to upload at the end of this series.
I've carried a burden too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go. I see it now. I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. Run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, you saw my condition, had a plan from the start. Your son for redemption, the price for my heart. I don't have a contest with that kind of love. I don't understand, I can't comprehend. All I know is I need you. Run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Again and again and again and again. Again and again and again and again. My heart has been in your sights long before my first breath, running into your arms is running to life from death. I feel this rush deep in my chest. Your mercy is calling. just as I am. You pull me in, and I know that I need you. Unto the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart found a surgeon, and my soul found a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh,
That is it. That brings church to an end, to a close.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
Love Steve. Love his heart. Love the online. I love all this. I love the doors that this has opened.
Yeah. I hope, and I see it, that I'm hoping Steve is a regular.
Yeah. No, I think that's a foregone conclusion. Every chance we get, we're gonna
Right.
have
So keep your notes, archive your questions. So when we do go live, you can ask those. Follow us on Instagram, social media, that type of stuff.
Yep.
Also, I guess a good way to get the notification that we're going live is the app, because we'll send it out and
I was
say,
guessing. I said app. Like,
Right.
is that what we're doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
The app.
But
Download the app.
But also, I think Instagram's the same thing. If you go on there and press, notifications to Shiloh Ranches Church specific page, you'll get. We'll post there.
I feel like a YouTuber right now. All Jets buddies that he follows on YouTube. Like,
Yeah,
click
hit the
subscribe.
notification button. Yeah, smash that like button. But yeah, so that's an exciting piece,
There we go.
and that's it. We'll see you guys next week.
Probably see you
Love-
sometime this week.
Yeah.
For you guys that don't know, Jacob's now in town here in Arizona for the next little while. We're going to be putting stuff out on a more consistent schedule. You're here to kind of start moving into that season of what it's going to mean at Shiloh. So
Yeah. So new stuff coming. It's fun. It's exciting. Love people around you, and bye for now.